David Doyle and Dana Bell, authors of many books, specifically in my interest, Squadron Signal Publications books. And I'm very excited to have them with me tonight. We're going to just talk about writing books, how they got started doing what they love doing, and just whatever else comes up. So feel free to join us in the live chat, ask questions. We will do our best to get to all the questions. We may or may not have time, depending on how many questions come in and how long it takes to answer those questions. So either way, we're going to have a good time. And again, I really appreciate you being here tonight. So first, let me bring on my guests and see what they've got going on tonight. Dana, David, can you hear me?
I can hear you fine.
Awesome.
Loud and clear.
There you go. Well, thank you guys for being here with us tonight. And I've got a really weird line in the middle of my screen. I don't know what that's about, but oh well. I guess it is what it is, right?
It is.
Well, so we just want to talk about books. You guys write books. We sell books. So let's jump into it and see how you guys got started. I guess we'll start with you, Dana. How did you get into this? I know you write books now. I know you spend a lot of time at the archives. I know that you love researching the things that you write about. Take us back before you got into that. What did you used to do? What did you like doing? How did you get to where you are now writing books?
I was primarily a modeler, just like an awful lot of us. I started out building and painting by hand, and then learned the joys of the airbrush, and used to mix Emery Risley paints and Pactra. Loved all that grand old stuff, and got into college and got introduced to IPMS. And I was lucky enough that the chapter that I joined was Northeast New York. And we had guys like Jim Moss and Art Loader and Bill Ellis. Oh, Lord, did I miss Steve Zaloga of all things? And they had a small chapter publication. They mentioned they were all going down to Washington to do some research and asked if I wanted to come along. It was right around then that I found out that I was the one with the car. So it was a good thing that I came along. But I fell in love with it. I had no concept of what it could be like to go in and actually see the live record of what they were thinking and what they were doing at the time. And I got hooked. And I found that I had more fun researching and writing than planning to become an engineer.
I see. Now, where do you live, or where did you live? Do you still live there? Where are you now?
Well, back then that was up in Troy, New York.
Okay.
And you want to guess what engineering school it was. But right now I'm Arlington, Virginia. I'm about 3 miles from the Air and Space Museum. The archives is, about 3 miles away for Archives 1 and about an hour and a half's drive for Archives 2.
Hence the reason you spend so many days there. Very close.
Indeed, it's the major advantage.
Now, David, I know you're a few states over from him, and bring us up to speed, to that point in your life. How did you get to where you are? I know you didn't start as a modeler, so, tell us how that started.
That's right. I don't have the skill set that you fellas have for building the beautiful models, although I appreciate seeing them. My background is I went to school to be a manufacturing engineer. One of these days I might graduate. I dropped out with 1 semester to go. And eventually wound up working in a hobby shop and then co-owned another hobby shop.
Okay.
And my hobby was collecting and restoring full-size military vehicles. And in order to do some of the restorations, what I thought was the right way, I needed to do some research. And then once I had completed my research, I thought, somebody else is going to go down this path in the future. I can write this down and save them a lot of steps. So I had an article published, and then I had an incident, which I won't go into now, where I got stuck in my backyard with a lawnmower and a series of ever larger military vehicles. And that article was published and was successful. And then I was approached to begin writing books for the full-size military audience, and left the hobby shop and didn't look back, and thought I was going to starve to death for a little while, but I haven't missed any meals lately. So that's what got me to this point. And I'm jealous of Dana, because for me to go to the National Archives is a full day's drive when I was a young man, and now it's a couple days drive.
Yeah.
So I don't get to go as frequently as I like, but I have good friends like Dana who I can dial up and say, hey, next time you're there, would you mind taking a look at this for me? So that's how I got here.
Now, for anybody, most of us, you would assume, would know what the archives are, but for anybody that may not know, or may not know, why would you go to the archives so often? And the answer is researching for your books. And David, you may not find yourself at the archives quite as often as Dana, but there's other ways that you guys do research, whether it be museums, whether it be whatever it be. So tell us a little bit about that, Dana. I mean, what is your purpose for if you're writing a book like the Devastator book that's due out very soon, when you do your research and you're going to the archives or wherever you're going, what's in your mind when you are heading there, knowing that you've got a Devastator book to write? What's your purpose when you get there?
Well, first, let me thank you for the plug. I actually do this backwards. I've only got so many books in me. And I expect to be doing a long research process. So while I used to study every book that was out there and see where they agreed and disagreed, and going with the goal of figuring out what the actual answer would be, nowadays I go in cold. I go in not knowing very much of anything about what else has been written already. And as I go through the records, it can take a long time. For instance, the Devastator book, my son and another intern and I spent 3 weeks downtown copying everything we could find in the Bureau of Aeronautics records and the contract records. But we didn't know what we were looking for. We were looking for everything. And it wasn't until we got all the pieces home and started going through it, we began to realize that there was stuff going on we hadn't expected. And we started checking the books. David, yours is one of the good ones. But we found a lot of disagreement, and a lot of what people were disagreeing about on the Devastator was simply a matter of the legend had been such for so many years that people didn't quite realize that, no, it never mounted a 50 in the nose. No, it never mounted a 50 in the aft cockpit. Little things, they all add up. And I think we got a pretty good story of the evolution of the aircraft. We discovered a lot of problems that hadn't been mentioned before. And I don't know, I enjoyed it.
Yeah, well, I think it turned out good, and everybody else will get to see it soon. Now, David, for you, Dana mentioned he's only got a few books in him, and I understand that. He spends a lot of time on those. You, on the other hand, seem to be coming out with books left and right. I often refer to you as a robot of a book writer, whether it's our Squadron, the Schiffer Publications, or whatever else you're writing. You've got so many coming out all the time. So walk us through a little bit about how you approach doing your research, and keep in mind that not all the time, we know a lot of people, if you read any of your books, you look through here and you thank lots of people. So I know that having good friends in the right places is a big help sometimes. So walk us through a little bit of how you approach writing so many books as you do it.
Well, absolutely. I could not write any books exclusively by myself. I'm blessed to have a network of friends that I can call on for advice or sources. They may or may not have the material I need in their hands, but they'll say, well, I know a guy, or I know the place, or this kind of thing. And that's where the internet is also very useful. not as a way to get the material, but know where to go to get the material.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of off subject a little bit from what you were asking, but I think it's important to realize that in my experience, you cannot sit at home and look at a computer and write a book. You're going to have to get in the car and go somewhere, or call a friend to get in the car to go somewhere to get new material or accurate material.
Oh, absolutely.
And I I write books for a living.
Right.
So some projects are passion projects, and I throw more time at them than can the economics justify. But since I have to put a roof over my head, it has to be done kind of in an assembly line process. The publisher tells me what he's after in terms of pages and in terms of number of images, and I try to create a book that meets the publisher's specification. And I'm not shy about telling people that I try to make a book that's 90% complete coverage of the subject, 95% accurate, and 100% done and available.
There you go.
I have dear friends who have been telling me for years, I'm going to write a book. I'm going to write a book. And they're trying to write a book that talks about, the length of every rivet in the aircraft, or who made every bolt in the tank or whatever. And the book never gets done. And a lot of valuable information is lost forever when these guys run out of steam or die or what have you, and never finish the book because they were trying to create the perfect book.
Right.
As you can see, I buy a lot of books, not necessarily to use as references other than to find sources, but also to try to see, every book on the P-51 has got this picture in it. Maybe I need to find some different photos to use in mine, right, so that the guy that buys my book doesn't look at it and say, well, I've seen all this stuff before. That's not fair to him because he spent his hard-earned money. And it's not fair to me because people look at the books, they don't buy it if there's nothing new to them. So
right. Yep. Well, and your point about, sitting behind the computer and writing a book based on everything you see on the internet. If you can find it on the internet, chances are the potential customers for these books have also found it on the internet. And to be able to give them something new that perhaps has never been seen before or has not been readily available to where they can easily see it, it's a good thing, and it makes for a good selling book for sure. So there's a lot of good things to now. I know in some of your books, some of the pictures you actually take yourself. Some are given to you or sold to you by friends or various places that you're not able to travel to. And so the three new books that we've done with you recently, David, of course, the B-36, F-16, and this one is, I think, possibly one of your favorites. Being that you own, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you own a 2.5-ton truck and a 5-ton truck, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so I would have to assume that writing something on those types of subjects would be of more interest to you than anything else, really. And I know that you and I have talked about possible books. Some of them you were extremely excited about, and they ended up happening. Some of them you said, I can do that. Some of them you just said, no, I have no interest in that.
Right.
And that's fine. You don't need to write something you have no interest in because it's not going to be any good. So talk a little bit about your interests. Like, I know that when I ask you to write a book, you either say yes or no, and you do it within our specs, like you were talking about a moment ago. I can assume when Schiffer asks you to do a book, it's very similar. If David Doyle got to choose his next book and nothing else mattered, you just got to write your subject, tell us a little bit about what are you most interested in and what type of books excite you the most when you're approached by a publisher to write something?
Well, if I could pick my next several subjects, they would be a, a number of U.S. military wheeled vehicles uh, produced from 1949 into the mid 1980s. Now, as far as a publisher coming to me and saying, let's do this, that's probably not a realistic expectation, because all of these books would be 7, 8, 900 pages long, and
Right.
I'm confident that they would sell, but I'm also aware that paper and designer time and shipping all cost money, and it's increasingly pricey the bigger the book gets.
Right.
Yeah.
But
and I'll get to a level of detail that is probably beyond the level of interest of a lot of the readers.
yeah, but you answered the question. Your main area of interest is military vehicles then.
Correct.
Okay. Now, Dana, I already know the answer, but what is your main area of interest if you're writing or researching?
Well, oddly enough, it is not colors and markings, though that's what I'm best known for.
All right.
But I still like writing about it. You and I have talked about taking the 3 volumes of Air Force colors, melding them into a single large volume, and adding 47 years worth of new information.
Well,
And I'm excited about
that cat's out of the bag. There you go, everybody. Future.
Well, I'm not worried about getting scooped because, as I say, it is 47 years
Yep.
worth of discovery.
No, it's going to be a good book, and I can't wait till we're ready to put that out. So
I'm looking forward to it. As just for the fun of it, that I'm planning to do on my own, because I can't think of any publisher crazy enough to publish it. I'll do a rivet counter guide on the F4U4 Corsair.
okay.
I may do something similar of insane details on the Hellcat. We'll see about that. Shall I keep a certain cat in the bag, or
If it has
I've got a book you and I have talked about?
if it has to do with, if it starts with a B and ends with a 7, yeah, go ahead, let the cat out of the bag.
B7. Yes, it is the B-17. And oddly enough, I'd been collecting on early B-17s at least a decade ago, and that project dried up. And I've still got all the material, but I also have a map of all the places I need to go in the archives to get the rest of the material that I'd like to have. So,
Right.
But it's going to take some time,
Yeah.
and I'll enjoy every minute of it. And you'll probably have to go a little crazy wondering when I'm going to stop researching and start writing.
Well, as long as you don't die before you get done, like David was talking about a minute ago, and let all that
Indeed.
research go bye-bye.
Well, I've already been dead once, and I'm glad to be back. So I'll just keep going.
There you go. There you go. So, David, talking about how many books everybody see, just on our squadron.com website the other day, I finally got around to posting all of your new, recently released and soon to be released Schiffer books. And there's a bunch of them. And I know that you and I have a couple of projects that are kind of being tossed around. I know you've got to do a road trip to finish off a couple of them. How many projects do you usually have going at one time, whether you're actually writing or whether they're staged in the queue? How do you already mentioned that this is your job. This is what puts a roof over your head. And at my business, I've got a production schedule. I've got all this stuff, right? So I can imagine you've got the same thing. So how many projects do you know about? How many do you have going? And take us through your day-to-day with that.
Well, I'll answer your question, but then I have to expand on that a little bit.
Okay.
At the moment, I am behind. I'm not proud to say, but I'm behind on 17 books. So I can honestly say there are 17 projects underway. That's not really true because there's these 17 projects that have contracts signed and have deadlines established.
Okay.
Then there are other projects that, like some you and I have discussed casually, we haven't formalized yet, but they're in the back of my mind. And if I'm at some archive or some other resource and I come across material related to it, I'm going to get it. There are projects that I think, I'd like to write one day, the be all and end all book about this and such. So I'm always looking for that material. And then there's some times when I just stumble across a little magical treasure trove of stuff, and I think, well, this is the beginning of a book here. I need to copy all this and then find somebody who might be interested in publishing it. So the larger answer is dozens of projects are being gathered at once. Dana has seen me at the National Archives on several occasions, as have some other people. And it's like, go through a dozen record groups on 3 different floors because you find one thing in one area and think, oh, it's pointing me in this direction. Well, while I'm here, I may as well go and check that out. So it's very difficult to give you an accurate answer to your question. I'm sitting in an office with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 filing cabinets full of material and 24 terabytes of storage on the computer of material related to current and future book projects.
That sounds like heaven.
Now, I noticed here in the chat, we've got if I'm not mistaken, unless we've just got a guy with the same name, Rich Dan was also a Squadron Signal Publications author that did books in the past. And Rich, you can confirm that in the live chat that you are indeed Richard S. Dan. So that's very cool. Very nice to have you. The lineup of Squadron Signal books is quite large, and somewhere behind David back there, he's got a full bookshelf of, to his knowledge, every one of them. And they go all the way back. David, you can correct me on this. Was it 72? I know Squadron, Jerry started in 68, but the first in action book was a couple years later. Was it 72? 71, 72, and Jerry wrote it, if I remember correctly. Is that right?
Yeah, right.
So through the years, there have been several authors that have done these, and unfortunately, I've not had the opportunity to talk to all of them yet. And Rich, I don't think I've spoken with you, so I'd love if you could give me a call sometime next week, perhaps at the shop. I'd love to say hello. But I have had a chance to talk to several authors, and some of them are quite up in age now and not able to or not wanting to write anymore. But it was very interesting having those conversations with those gentlemen.
1971 is the
1971. Okay,
what I've got.
I knew it was in there somewhere. But now, Dana, David, of course, you've written several in-action books and other Squadron books, but Dana, you just have the 3, the Air Force colors. Is that correct?
For Squadron, true, yes.
Yes, for Squadron. Yeah, you've written many other books for other publishers. But what year? When were the Air Force colors books?
I think the first Air Force colors was 1978.
Okay.
My first book.
Okay.
Ever.
Now, David,
and then the next one was like 79 or 80.
Okay.
And then there was a 17-year gap before volume 3.
Oh, I didn't realize it was that far.
It was ridiculous.
Okay. Now, David, what about your first? Did you write your first? Was it for Jerry, or had Jerry sold it by the time you got involved and wrote your first book for Squadron?
Well, I had approached Squadron with the idea of selling them books, and spoke with Jerry, who said, "Yeah, I'm interested in your books. I'll pay you $200 when we print the book, which will be about 2 years from now." And I said, "Look, fella, I'm doing this to put food on my table, and I like to eat more regular than that. I'll starve to death." So we agreed to disagree, and I moved on to somebody else. And then after Mike McMahon had acquired the company, they needed some help with a book, and my friend Dave Harper was working there, and he suggested that Mike get in touch with me, that I could probably help them with that, and I could. And then he wanted to know why I wasn't writing books for them, and I told him what I just told you, and he said, "Well, we can do better than that," and he offered a different number. And I said, "Well, your number's a lot better, but there's the concern that this is what I do for a living, and doing 2 books a year and getting paid 2 years later is going to be a problem." And he made the mistake, he probably thought afterwards, of saying, "I can buy books as fast as you can write them." And I said, "Okie dokie, we've got a deal." And away we went.
Okay. Now, so when I bought Squadron, it was, of course, Texas Squadron, of course, filed bankruptcy in January of 21. Mm-hmm. And a buddy of ours went out and ended up buying it from the auction. And he ended up selling the Squadron portion of it to me later that year. And when I bought that, it did not include, I didn't get Squadron Signal Publications at the auction. That was split off into another lot, and another gentleman purchased that. And I remember when it must have been 2022 in January, we went to the Chattanooga IPMS show, which is right up the road from us. I love going to that every year. And my dad went with me, and I remember seeing you. And I was walking around kind of getting back into the business because we had previously owned Free Time Hobbies, and we own it again now, but at the time I had sold Free Time Hobbies. So I was walking around trying to figure out what was what, because I'd been out of the business for a little over a year. And I saw you and I said, "Hey, David, it's good to see you." And I remember you asking me, you said, "So when are you going to buy Squadron Signal Publications?" I said, what do you mean? That's not on the table. And he said, "Well, anything's for sale. Here's the phone number of the guy that owns it." And I remember you telling me, "I've got the first book ready to go if you want to print books again." And of course, the FA-18 book, you had already had it done back for Texas Squadron when they, I guess, basically pulled the plug on doing all books. And that intrigued me. And of course, we contacted Lee Leibold and made a deal and bought the publishing company from him. And of course, he retained all of the original artwork, which is very nice to look at, by the way. And he's got that. So if you guys see Lee Leibold at the IPMS shows, make sure to go over to his booth. He's got all the original paintings for the book covers for sale, and very, very nice stuff. Wow. But we got that. We got hooked up with you, got the Hornet book out, and been going ever since. Not quite as fast as you mentioned before, Mike saying he can buy books as fast as you can write them, and we're not quite there yet, but perhaps one day, right?
Notably, you're in business and they're not.
Well, yeah, I guess there is that, right? I don't know. I would love to do more books, but it's like you said, you got to be able to sell them. And books are still very nice, but they don't sell like they did years and years ago. Like we talked about earlier, finding material that's not available online, it's not the easiest thing to do. And then convincing people that this book is full of things that you can't see anywhere else, they just don't know that till they see the book. So, but
By the way, this book is full of things that you can't see anywhere else.
yeah. Yeah, I got one too.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's the back. Yeah,
That's all right. The back is full of things you can't see anywhere else, too.
Yeah.
I really like your artist. I think that that's helping a lot. You found a very fine artist who's doing wonderful things on your covers.
Yeah, Peter is doing a real good job. I really like what he's done. One of my favorite things that, and David, we're going to have to do this in the future books that you and I are working on as well. But the way we did this in the front of your book, Dana, with the full spread artwork from Peter, doing that kind of stuff is just it's really neat. I do like it for sure. Let me look over here in the live chat and see if we've got any questions. If anybody's got any questions, shoot them over here and let me see. Here is a question from Jim. Will the original Squadron in Action series be brought back? So I'll answer that. I'll answer the question the way I want to answer it, and then I'll answer the question that I think you're asking. The series is back. We are continuing the series of inaction books. The last two, B-36 in action, F-16 in action, both of which David wrote. The next book in the series, of course, The Devastator in action, which will be out the first or second week of December. So the series is back. That's the way I want to answer your question. But what I think you're asking is, are we going to republish or reissue the older books? And if I had to give you a definite answer right here today, the answer would be no, probably not. There's a lot of reasons, contracts, authors, lots of reasons. And one of the most unfortunate reasons is when everything in Texas was packed up by the auctioneers, they didn't really know what they were looking at, didn't really care. They were tasked with getting everything boxed up and prepared to sell. And long story short, we don't have a lot of the things that would be required to republish those, even if we could or wanted to. Having said that, a lot of the older books, for example, the B-36 book, there was only ever one of these ever done by Squadron, and it was many, many years ago. So this is not a reissue of that book per se, but it is another B-36 book that's been done by David. There was only ever one of these. This is not a reissue of that book, but it is the same subject matter. So a lot of the older books, same thing with the B-17 that Dana said he's going to do for us. We're not going to reissue any of the old B-17 books, but that's a great subject matter, so we're going to do new books on those. So the chances of us reissuing a book just like it was, probably not. But if there was some of those subjects that were really good, I'd love to do them again as a new book, whether Dana writes it, whether David writes it, or perhaps somebody else. So
I think it's worthwhile to point out that the Squadron books have grown through the years. If I'm not mistaken, the original Devastator book was 56 pages, and Dana's book is how many pages?
176.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, and you can see that if you start looking. If any of you have a collection of the majority of the books, go back to the older ones, and all the books now, we've got the perfect bound edge. You go back several years, and before that, they were staple bound because they were a lot thinner, not as many pages. So they do keep expanding. They do keep getting bigger. Dana, this one's for you. Rich wants to know if you found any juicy tidbits
Innumerable
for the Devastator book.
tidbits. I think one of my favorites is that it's been mentioned in most books that the airplane was really an experiment, that the Navy was getting into new technology for the first time, metal-skinned, modern airplanes, semi-retracting landing gear, enclosed cockpit, and all those wonderful things, lots of hydraulics. But because nobody done it before efficiently, they really hadn't considered the ramifications of some of the things they did. They were using the hydraulic system to raise and lower the landing gear. And they had a little switch in the cockpit. There's a picture of it in the book. The switch goes to the left to raise the landing gear. The hydraulic pump sucks the gear up. Then you put it to lock, and then you put it to the other side, and it lowers the landing gear. Now, you would think that lock, in modern terms, the lock would lock the gear up or lock the gear down, but it didn't. There was no physical lock. All they were doing was shutting off the pump. The result being they were hoping the hydraulic fluid would hold the gear down, or that the hydraulic fluid would hold the gear up. And if there was any expansion in the lines or a bubble somewhere, they didn't have that. So the number 5 airplane was taxiing before it's delivered, and the landing gear folds up on the airplane. They haven't even delivered it to the Navy. Douglas studied the problem for 10 months, trying to figure out what went wrong, and came back to the Bureau of Aeronautics and said, "We've looked at it. We have no idea why the landing gear folded up." They just hadn't considered the need for something like a physical lock. Does it matter to modelers? Nah, you're not going to have to worry about a lock to hold your gear down. You just put more, permabond in there or something like that. But history of the airplane, yeah, very much so. One other. This has been going around for years. This is not the new kit, but there we go. You've got a little lump on some of your Devastators, a kidney-shaped lump, and it's usually described as the cover for the 50 caliber machine guns when they had to mount the bigger machine guns in the nose. Well, they never mounted a 50 caliber machine gun in the nose of the TBD. It would not fit. What they had found was that just above the carburetor intake was where they ejected the links from the 30 caliber machine gun. The links were traveling back along the slipstream, hitting the tail and chipping and denting the metal on the tail, blowing into the aft cockpit and hitting the gunner. And so they couldn't put up with that. And VT2 and VT3 created that kidney-shaped link container. The link simply ejected into there. When they got down on the ground, they took it off, shook all the links out, and flew some more until they could actually get a chute to dump everything into the belly of the airplane and leave the links and the cartridges there. So yeah, this a couple of things that interested the heck out of me, that redefined what the airplane was all about.
There you go. Well, this next question will be interesting, and you guys, if the answer is yes, you might not want to answer, and that would be fine. But I think I know both of you well enough to know that you are interested in learning and getting better. So this is an interesting question. And David, I'll give it to you first. And Carlos wants to know, have you ever found new information that contradicts a previous book you've written?
Absolutely. And I usually find it the day after the publisher calls me and says, "Your book's just been printed."
Okay.
But I must share, I had one memorable incident. I was at a military vehicle convention, and there were a number of people engaged in a heated argument about a particular detail of a particular type of vehicle as they were standing nearby. and one fellow was adamant about the fuel capacity of this vehicle. And I said, well, that's not right. The fuel capacity is actually this and such. And he was insistent that, no, it was another number. And I'm like, why? And he said, well, the book says, yada, yada, yada. And after about the third time, I said, well, what book? And he reaches in the cab of the truck, and he picks up this book. And I said, note the name here.
Yes, the name there.
Note the name on my name tag. The book's wrong. So yes, it's inevitable. And that's back to the, I try to make a book that's 90% complete, 95% accurate, and 100% available.
There you go.
Absolutely.
There you go.
That's the first book I wrote, by the way.
There you go.
Long out of print. Not available.
Oh, really? Okay. Oh man. Let's see. What other questions do we have over here?
Brandon, I can toss in very quickly that I have
do.
never published a book that didn't have at least one mistake, where I learned new information after. And the old axiom is the easiest way to find out what you don't know is publish what you think you do. There'll be plenty of folks to come along and tell you why you missed the boat on something.
Right. Well, the fun thing for me, because I know we talked about the Air Force Colors books.
Yeah.
And you might know of some things that are wrong based on new information you found. But more importantly than that, I remember you telling me how much more you know about it now that just simply was not available to be known at the time.
Absolutely.
So not just finding out corrected information, but finding new, information that was previously unknown is nice too. So,
I use the internet an awful lot to put out corrections. If I make a mistake, I'll go on Hyperscale predominantly, or if there's a question on Brit Modeler or a few of the other good sites, I'll go there and I'll say, yes, I wrote this. However, I subsequently learned that the following is true instead.
Okay. And Rock, there's 176 pages.
Hey, Rock.
in that Devastator book. And
I hope you're feeling better right now, Rock. I understand you had a bout of not feeling your best.
Hopefully he's feeling good. We need to get him a Devastator book. That'll make him feel good, right?
I think it will. The other good thing is if your table is wobbling, it fits right under the short legs. So it works perfectly that way.
Yeah. And all of the books, we're trying to do more and more pages, 88 pages. And then we slipped that B-25 book in with 136 pages. And we thought that was kind of nice. So both the David's books this year were 136, except for the F-16. It was back to 80 because it was kind of already done and planned. But we're looking to make the books bigger and bigger. And I don't know. And then talking about doing bigger and bigger books, Scott wants to know if we're going to do any big hardcover books like the like the Duck book and all that,
and the Lee Grant book. Absolutely.
The answer is sure. I'd like to. It's just a matter of picking out the right subject and getting it done, I suppose. I'm not against hardcover.
17 would be a great subject.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. Let's see. Who else do we got in here? Thank you for. Yes, we are happy to be here and happy to have the inaction books back for sure.
Indeed.
B-47 book. 40 years.
Who wrote that? Was that Wayne Walksmith? I can't remember who wrote the B-47 book.
Let's see.
It's
find it out with a few clicks of a button, probably. Maybe.
There's a really fine book.
That was back before they were putting authors' names on the front covers.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah.
What's the number?
Uh,
By the
aircraft
way,
28. Yep, David's gonna go grab it off the shelf. There you go.
that's right. Hey, David, if you end up writing a new B-47 book for Squadron, let me know. I've got a whole bunch of new B-47 photos to loan you.
There you go. See, it's about who
Once
you know,
upon a
right?
time, I was contracted to do that, and then this lady came in and canceled the contract.
Well, hey, maybe we need to have a conversation next week.
So
Chris wants to know if there's going to be any more walk around books, and I don't.
Oh, Lou Drendel, of course.
So the walk around books, I don't want to ever say never, but the plan at the moment is to have the inaction series and the detail in action. And the best way I can describe the detail in action is it's the combination of an inaction book and a walk around book. And so that's probably anytime we want to do a walk around type book, we're going to combine it with the inaction style and put it all together in the same pages and call it the detail in action. So that's the plan of the day for that.
It's a good plan.
Have you ever not found information like that? I don't know how long ago this chat was, so I'm not sure what like that means, but we'll ask it a different way. Have you ever not found what you were trying to find at the archives or wherever? Oh, and that's from Sean. Hey, Sean.
Oh, geez, heck yeah. Sean, you know better than that. We've talked about this over lunch. The TBD book had a lot of frustrations in that a large number of the records of the reports that are mentioned in correspondence are nowhere to be found. And for instance, there's the Mark 42 bomb racks that insert into the bottom of the wings. And we spent days trying to figure out where they could be, going to different collections, Bureau of Ordnance, BuAer, anything we could think of. We never found the reports that actually showed the installation and how they were mounted, how they were tested. So we looked forever and realized we're just not going to find it. They're probably here, but they're not indexed. And we ended up having to use two photos of the same rack suspended beneath the wing of PBY. And we mentioned in the caption, but there are things that you know are out there and you can bang your head against the wall forever, but it doesn't make them turn up any faster. And the frustration just stays on.
There you go. And I want to answer a couple more questions. Then I want to throw a curveball at everybody and do a couple of giveaways. So stay tuned for that in a few minutes. But let's see. We'll see if you can answer this one real quick, David or Dana, whichever one you want. Some of the strangest sources that you obtained some of your material. You know, archives isn't really that strange, but you know, I know I've had some really strange emails with some people having some really wacky stuff that I don't know where in the world they would have found these things. So what are some strange sources that you guys have had some of your material from?
David, you want to take that?
Well, one of the ones that comes immediately to mind is Denise and I were displaying some of our books at the American, let's see, VFW convention a few years ago, and a guy walks up to the booth and says, "You ever done any books about the Humvee?" And I said, "Yeah, I got this Humvee in action right here." And he said, "You ever done anything more in depth on the Humvee?" And I'm like, "Not yet." He said, "Would you like to?" And I said, "Well, you know, maybe if I found a publisher and found the material." And he's like, "Well, I was involved in the testing of the three prototypes. I've got some material." I'm like, "Oh, really?" He said, "Yeah, I've got it in my hotel room. I'll be back after a while." And he brings this giant binder of stuff I've never seen before. And he says, copy this and give it back to me when you're done. So,
Wow, he came there with a purpose, I guess.
so that's got to be one of the strangest places that I found material.
Is there a book on the door? I wish, because that's possibly one of my favorite subjects, and especially since I finally have one of those 35th scale model kits of that thing. I don't know if there's enough material to justify doing an entire book just on the Dora, but I know, David, you've got at least one railgun book with Schiffer, don't you?
And one with Squadron.
Yeah, I know you had. Yeah, I know we've got some of those, but your Schiffer one, I guess, is newer. So yes, some railgun books, and I think, if I remember correctly, it includes a little bit of that railgun. But I've been looking and looking and looking. I would love to find enough material on that particular gun, and there were two of them. And if there was enough material, that'd be an awesome book that I'd love to see happen. But let's see. I don't want to drag this out too long, so I'm going to slip down here and see what else we've got, other questions, and then we're going to try to give something away. And Steve, you're asking to discuss the process for research. I don't know if you missed the beginning of the show, but after this will be up as a replay. And the guys were talking about that a little while ago, and you can check that out later. It's pretty interesting to hear. I don't know. Let's give some stuff away. David, I've got your 3 new books here. I'd like to give one of each of them to somebody here in the chat, and I'd like for you to sign them, and I'll pay for the shipping and have you ship it to them. And Dana, I'd like to do the same thing with the Devastator book. Now, I know.
My pleasure. I
know I sent you 2 of them.
Right.
And you're probably now realizing why I sent you 2. If you still have it, I'd love to have you sign one and send it to whoever wins in a moment. If you've already given your second copy away, that's fine.
Well, I gave a copy to my son because he helped with the research, but I'll give the clean copy away and replace it later on.
Yeah, I'll replace it later. They'll be here in a couple of weeks, or I can send you this one. Either way. So the way this is going to work, everybody, you gotta do this the right way. In the live chat, you have to type in. Let's see. I'll post it here. Hold down Shift on your keyboard and hit the 3. That's the ampersand, the number sign. And we're going to do David's F-16 book first. So you're going to type this F-16 number sign, F-16 pound sign, whatever you call that. F-16. Don't do it yet. Give me just a minute. I'm going to set this up, and then everybody that types that in will be eligible to win this in just a moment. All right. And now you can go. So type that in, and here in just a minute, we'll give everybody a few moments to type that in, and then the system will automatically choose a winner. Now, since we're talking about the F-16 book, David, is there anything in particularly interesting that you can mention about that book? The process of getting it done, or is there anything worth talking about for a minute or so?
Well, one of the things that I most enjoyed, working within the parameters we had, so many pages to work in, was there was a number of very interesting paint schemes, and trying to pick and choose which ones to include in this volume was I think the most interesting and enjoyable part for me.
That's what we're typing in, guys. Don't put
no hyphen.
No hyphen. Now, I know that both of you, you do go to shows, whether it's model shows or David, I know you go to the real vehicle shows and you guys sell books there. Dana, I'm pretty sure you do seminars and such.
Mhm.
How many shows do y'all do? I mean, what's your next show? Where can these guys come meet you in person and get an autographed copy of the books?
I think my next show is going to be Mosquito Con up in New Jersey, just outside of New York City. Always a good show, always a good time. I'd go even if I wasn't selling books. So good folks, good time. I'd say show up and enjoy yourself.
Yeah, I've heard a lot about that show. I've never been to it.
It's a good one.
Yeah. What about you, David? Where are you headed to next for doing a trade show?
I'll probably see you in Chattanooga in January.
Yep. Yeah, that's probably the next one I'm going to. I can't think of another one before then, unless I'm forgetting something. But I don't get to do as many of them as I would like.
Yeah.
All right, guys, I'm on about another 10 seconds or so. I'm going to go ahead and do the drawing on the F-16 book. So anybody else want to jump in there to try to win this real quick? All right, here we go.
So how is this selecting the winner?
It is everybody that, there you go, Jim.
Oh.
All right, so Jim, I need you to send me an email to info@squadron.com and give me your shipping address and let me know that you're the guy. And David will sign one of the F-16 books and we will have it in the mail to you soon.
I imagine you're going to have to send that care of Shemp Howard.
Okay. Whatever the information I need for you, Jim, just email it over to me at info@squadron.com. And my contact information is also on our website at squadron.com. So just get with me tomorrow or whenever, and we'll get that book headed your way. All right. We're going to do another David book because I've only got one Dana book.
Indeed.
We'll do the B-36 book next. So this is going to be the same thing, except this time, why is my number not working? B-36. There we go. Go ahead and punch that in and see who we can give this to. Now, David, so
Yes,
it is not a secret because I put it in our catalog, but we've got a future book coming on the A.J. Savage.
it's one of those 17 books I mentioned that I'm behind on.
Yeah, no, it's fine. It's this one is particularly interesting to me because unless I am wrong, and correct me if I am, this will be the first time that the A.J. Savage has ever been an in-action book. Am I correct in saying that, or is there a really old book that I'm forgetting about?
I'm not remembering one.
I don't think there is, so it's gonna be neat. I like that. And I know you've got some road trips and a lot of research to do, but we're looking forward to that, and I hope that it ends up being one of those that you like doing, not one of those that you didn't like doing.
I wouldn't have said yes if I didn't think I'd enjoy it.
Well, I guess that is true. All right, let's go ahead and wrap this B-36 up and see who's going to get this. In 3, 2, 1. And to answer your question from a minute ago, Dana, this streaming software that I use, it's got this function built into it. Steve.
It's a random selection kind of thing then.
Yeah. So everybody that puts that little hashtag code in the chat gets thrown into the hat, so to speak, and then the computer automatically selects the winner.
Excellent.
So Steve wins the B36 book. I figure I better write this down. Steve, same thing. Send me an email to info@squadron.com. Let me know your shipping address, and we'll get David to sign up one of those, and we'll ship it out to you. All right, so now we will do Dana's book.
All right.
The Devastator book.
A rare book. There are how many in the country? What, 5?
4.
4. You've
Yep.
got one. David's got one.
And you've
My
got
son
2.
has one, and
Yep.
I eventually will have another one. So
There
very
you
good.
go. There you go. All right, this time we're going to do TBD is the code.
To be determined.
Yeah, there you go. So punch that in, and let's see who's going to win the very first copy of the Devastator book.
Guaranteed to be the first on your block.
While we're waiting, I see we have a question
Oh,
from a
okay.
reader
You're seeing a lot more than I am, David.
that I can speak to.
Yeah, please do. Who was it?
Someone asked, "How do we decide what publisher we want to pitch a book to?"
Oh, nice. Okay, yeah, go ahead.
And in some cases, it's not really up to us. Certain publishers have contracts that say, and if you're going to write any
Right
more
of
books
first
like this one,
refusal.
we get the first right of refusal on it. And so Dana and I both would be obligated to honor that commitment we made to whatever publisher it was. Then if they elect not to take us up on that, then we can shop it around to Brandon or anybody else that we think. For example, I have written a book about John Deere collectibles. Well, that's probably not going to be of interest to Brandon. So that kind of thing kind of steers us to, at least steers me to where I'm going to go.
Yeah.
That's good information. All right, let's give this Devastator book away.
By the way, when you send the information to Brandon, please let us know if you want the book to be signed or if you want the book dedicated.
There you go. Beth Hill wins the Devastator book.
Lucky Beth.
And Beth, same thing, info@squadron.com. And if y'all want to call me, that's fine too. I'll be at the shop tomorrow. Phone number's listed on our website at squadron.com. You can call me and give me your address that way as well. That is not a problem. All right, last book to give away tonight. This is David's Vietnam gun truck book. And it's a nice book. So hopefully you win. This one's going to be truck for the code. David, do you happen to have that picture handy?
The cover?
No, the one of your backyard.
Oh. Yeah, probably so.
If you got it, I thought I had it. I was going to throw it up on the screen without asking you, but I can't find it. Because I just think that's a great story.
So how do I get it to you?
You might be able to just
Put present.
Yes, that's it. Do present, and I don't know. I'm still getting used to all this. Maybe present and then slides, and then from your computer.
Yeah, but it's getting there.
And if you can't figure that out, you can email it to me real quick and I can throw it up here.
You know, I'm a dead trees kind of a guy, not a electronic kind of a guy. So it's coming to you in an email.
All right. I'll look for it. All right, guys. Anybody else that wants to see about winning this book, throw that code in the live chat real quick. All right, so I'm going to get that email in a second. I'll put the picture up, David, but you got to go ahead and prep us for this picture. Tell us the story.
Well, so this was back at the time I co-owned a hobby shop, and I had bought a house out in the country with a pretty good sized yard, which is an unfortunate thing to do when you're a guy who really, really doesn't like yard work, such as myself. So my solution to that problem was I went to Sears. This tells you how long ago this was, because Sears was a viable concern then. And I bought the largest riding lawnmower that Sears sold, with the theory being that if my lawnmower could ride over it, I didn't have to pick it up. So I bought this lawnmower. And then I go home. And shortly, a few weeks later, I'm mowing the yard, and there's a low place in my backyard. And as I drive this big lawnmower across this low place, it gets stuck. So I thought, well, I'll go up here and get my pickup and I'll pull my lawnmower out, and that'll solve this problem. So I go up to the house and I get the lawnmower, or I get my pickup and a chain, and I go down there and hook it to the lawnmower, and then I get the pickup truck stuck. So I look up the hill toward my house and I see this long line of Army trucks, and I thought, well, they'll pull out to pick up. One of them will pull out to pick up and the lawnmower. So I walk back up the hill and I get in the truck. It's at the back of the line, which is a 2.5 ton truck. And I throw the switch on and push start, and it just kind of goes ka-thunk. And then I'll remember, oh yeah, this is the one I needed to put a battery charger on. But I'm sitting on the hill, so I figure, well, I can get it rolling down this hill and it'll start. Just let out on the clutch. So I put it in reverse and start rolling down the hill. I had it parked in gear. So when I rolled down the hill, I popped the clutch out and the engine fired right up. And I thought, we're in good shape. So I go down and I hook onto my pickup, which is hooked onto the lawnmower, and I pull all this mess out. And then I remember, oh yeah, this is the one I keep putting off working on the parking brake on. So I can't park it on this hill because, it'll roll. And if I shut it off when it's sitting not on the hill, it won't start back. So I'll circle around here on this flat ground and shut everything off, and it'll be great. Well, circling it around, I go into that same spot that the lawnmower got stuck in, and the pickup got stuck in, and then the Army truck got stuck in it too. So I contemplated this for a while, and I thought, well, I've got this military wrecker. I'll go get it, fish all this mess out. The wrecker was stored at my dad's place of business about 60 miles away, and I drove down the next morning to get it. And Dad happened to be at his shop and asked what I was doing, and I told him, and he said something along the lines of, well, I got to go see this circus. So he rides down there with me, and I proceed to, I'm going to winch it out with the big drag winch on the back of the wrecker, 30,000 pound capacity. Well, I could only get about 6 feet of the cable out. So I thought, well, I'll just back up to that 2.5 ton truck and pull it out. And after a few more little unfortunate incidents, you see that the 5 ton wrecker has gotten stuck too. By now, it's time for me to go open the store and take note of the driver's door in this picture. So I go to the store, and as I'm leaving, my dad's best friend has a heavy wrecker service, and I said, Dad, you reckon Larry come get this out for me? And he said, yeah, I imagine so. So I go to the store, I work all day, I get home about 6:30 at night, And my two Army trucks are sitting up in the driveway. And I go in the house, I pick up the phone, I call my dad's buddy Larry and say, hey, what I owe you for pulling this out? And he's like, you can't afford to pay the bill, so I'll just do it for free because me and your dad are friends. And I said, well, thank you very much, Larry. I appreciate that. And I ain't looking to give horse in the mouth, but I'm just curious, why is there a hole in my backyard now that I could throw a Volkswagen in and it would go out of sight? And he said, have you looked at your wrecker lately? And I said, yeah, I just drove by. And he said, well, look at it again and look at the door. And I looked at the door and there's a mud line across the door. And I said, why is there a mud line across the door? And he said, because by the time I got there, it had sunk until when I opened the cab door, it pushed mud back. And this is the Reader's Digest of a story that I've told several times and finally got convinced I needed to write it down, and I sent it in. And that was the second article I wrote, and the article that led directly to me getting a book contract, the first of many. And that's how I came to be in this line of work instead of running a hobby shop or doing yard work, either one.
Well, there you go.
Now, David, you've just moved to a new house. You got room for your trucks in the backyard?
I do, and it's flat, and there's no wet spots.
All right. Well, this gun truck book is going to go to David.
You bidding on your own book?
Not me.
Another David. David gets a book signed by David. David, make sure to email me at info@squadron.com and let me know your shipping address, and David will get that book signed and out in the mail to you. All right. Well, awesome. Giving stuff away is fun, right?
It is indeed.
Especially when it's your stuff.
Yeah, I guess so. Well, this has been fun. I enjoyed it. I really appreciate you guys coming on here. Is there anything else that you want to add or talk about or ask or anything? Either one of you, Dana or David.
I'm good. It's been fun. Nice to talk about how it all started up.
And we appreciate the support of not only you and your dad, but especially the guys that have joined the chat and that buy the books that keep the roofs over our heads.
Oh, absolutely.
Indeed.
Yeah. There's a lot of names that I recognize and a lot that I'm not sure if I recognize. So you guys make sure to come back. I'll be back next Wednesday. I don't know who I'm going to have on here yet. And if I don't have anybody planned, then I'll open the cameras up to anybody that wants to join me. I want to make this a regular thing on Wednesday and try to have different guests. I know I've got some guys from a few model companies that want to get on here with me and talk about the same thing we talked about tonight, how these guys got started in books. I've got some guys that want to talk about how they got started in producing model kits. And it's just going to be fun, going to be interesting, and I hope to keep this going each Wednesday night. So thank everybody for being here, and make sure to visit our website at squadron.com and buy me out of David and Dana's books so that I
all
can
in favor, motion carries. All opposed, not too late.
Yep. So, well, great. Well, guys, again, thank you both for being here. And I'm sure that we will be talking again very soon.
Thanks for including us, Brandon. Appreciate it.
Absolutely, Dana. David, I'll talk to you soon, I'm sure.
I'm sure.
All right, guys. Live chat. Thanks again. Until next time, take it easy.